you for being here this evening for our annual State of the Mill Creek Address. My name is Dave Schmidt. I'm the Executive Director of Mill Creek Alliance, and I thank you all for coming out tonight, those of you who are here in person, and all of those who are joining us by Zoom. Appreciate you guys too. We've got lots of great news to share with you about Mill Creek and the activities of the Mill Creek Alliance, and we'll launch right into that. First, before we get going, a few of the usual housekeeping items. If you need to use the restroom, they're on the other side of the hallway over there, the ladies and the men's rooms. If you are on Zoom, we appreciate it if you would mute your audio and possibly even turn off your camera until you're ready to ask a question, or send us a chat at the end to save a little bandwidth and make sure we don't have any trouble broadcasting. I'd like to thank tonight, before we get started, our friends from ICRC-TV cable who are broadcasting this live on their cable channel. And as well, we'll be putting up a recording of the event for anyone who's not able to make it. We'll pass along the link, and you can pass along to any friends who are interested who didn't get to join in tonight. And also like to thank our host tonight, the Metropolitan Sewer District of Greater Cincinnati, for allowing us the use of this great room, which is all set up for all this audio visual, all the great slides you're going to see. And certainly, last but not least, I want to thank all of the sponsors who provide funding for us to operate the water quality monitoring program, which you're going to hear a lot about tonight, which is doing incredible things, but we could not do it without the support of a lot of different folks. And those include, again, the Metropolitan Sewer District of Greater Cincinnati, who are great friends of ours, the Environmental Protection Agency of Ohio, Butler County Stormwater, Butler County Water and Sewer, and the L&L Nippert Foundation. All of those provide extremely valuable funding, and we could not run the water quality monitoring program without them. Next, I would like to invite our host, Jennifer Richmond from Metropolitan Sewer District, up, come and say a few words about what they do and all of their activities on Mill Creek. Again, thank them. A round of applause for allowing us the use of this great room tonight.
Can everybody hear me in the back? Yeah, okay, good. So on behalf of MSD and Director Christie, I want to welcome you all to MSD and to our Mill Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant and the State of the Mill Creek Address. I would like to apologize for the tape on the doors. We are undergoing some construction. This is brand new carpet that just got put in this week, and we've got some other epoxy and stuff like that. So try to avoid the doors that have the big blue tape on it. So when I started at MSD back in 2009, I'll be completely honest with you, I knew nothing about the Mill Creek except for the fact that back in the 80s, dirt from the Mill Creek was brought to my grade school, and they raised the elevation of the ball fields right along 74, right there at 74 in North Bend Road. So that was the extent of what I knew about the Mill Creek. But my boss was Chris Hill, who's here tonight, and he made us all read this book. I haven't read it since 2009, so I did get a new copy so that I could start rereading it, because I borrowed his book and he took it back. So thank you for reminding me and making me read that way back when. So, but that, at the time, I did not know anything about the partnership with the Mill Creek and how the sewer district affected the Mill Creek at all. So this book, if you haven't read it, and I'm sure a lot of people have, It talked about the history, the settling of the valley and the effects on the creek, the industry of the region and the increase in pollution, how the growing population and the overflowing sewage, how the Corps' involvement in protecting the valley, which included the concrete channel that was installed where we got all the dirt for our ball fields. But then in 1997, the American Rivers designated that creek as one of the most endangered urban rivers in North America. So water is one of the most precious resources in the world, and that we depend on in our day-to-day life. It's important that we protect that. So here at MSD, we're proud to partner with the Mill Creek Alliance, and the mission of the Alliance as well to champion the resurgence of the Mill Creek watershed as a natural and community asset, and envision the watershed as a healthy ecosystem where people and communities can thrive. I can't recite that offhand, but eventually, maybe. So this year, MSD took part in a city initiative that we adopted a class. So if you're familiar with the area, Euler School is right down the street. So we actually adopted a 7th and 8th grade math class. And so each month we go and we talk to them about opportunities in our industry and how we affect the community as a whole. And one of the first things that we talked about is the Mill Creek and how it's in their backyard. It is something that not a lot of them knew a lot about. It's a different day and age where kids don't go out and play in the creek like I did. We had trails and camps in the woods behind our house, and we played in all those creeks and rivers. Now, if I knew back then what I know now, would I play in those creeks? Maybe. I would probably look at our CSO map first, but but trying to get these kids to really understand what we do has been a chore, but it's something that's been very, very worth our while. One of our goals is that we are having a field trip. Their field trip is going to be a trip here to the plant. And I've asked Dave if they would join us in that field trip where we talk about what we do and how we partner with the Mill Creek Alliance and how that works with the Mill Creek that's right here, so that hopefully they get a little bit more interested in just their neighborhood. So I want to take this time to thank the Mill Creek Alliance for your collaboration during the power outage that we had almost a year ago next week, I believe. That something that we never thought would happen. So just last week we had our service awards, and we had a plant treatment supervisor that's been here for 45 years. In his 45 years, he's never had experienced a power outage like the one that we had a year ago. So, and we hope that we never do again, and as long as he stays here, which is his plan is for several more years. So we'll see if we can keep that up, that we don't have any more power outages like that. But the coordination that we had with the Mill Creek Alliance and the communication was amazing. The negotiation to release water from the West Fork Dam, the collection of stream samples, the analysis couldn't have been done without the help of this organization. So for that, we really appreciate and are very thankful. And then lastly, I'd like to thank all the volunteers, the organizers, and the members of the Mill Creek Alliance for your work you continue to do every day. We're thankful for the alliance, the bond that we've created between MSD and the Mill Creek Alliance, and we strive to continue that alliance into the future. So thank you all for being here tonight, and I hope you enjoy.
All right, thank you, Jennifer, very much. All right, now we want to launch into the main part of the presentation, and we're going to hear an awful lot tonight about our great water quality monitoring program and the results from the past year. But I would be remiss before we get started on that if I didn't say a few words about some of our other programs, but most importantly, about our staff and our board. Um, we have an amazing staff, I think all of whom are here tonight. This is an all-hands-on-deck event. You guys from Mill Creek Alliance, stand up. Interns, all of you. All right. Thank you. Mill Creek Alliance punches way above its weight, and we do amazing work. And it's really these guys. I get to stand up here and be the pretty face and take credit for everything that we do, but it's really them. They make it happen. They make my job easy. They make coming to work a joy for me every single day. I look forward to it, and that's all down to them. I'd also like to recognize all of our board members. A bunch of our board members are here tonight. I'd like to invite them to stand up. If you're on the Mill Creek Alliance board, stand up. We have an amazing board. They do so much for us. They're incredibly active, and much like our staff and our interns, we could not do what we do without them. All right. Well, so as I said, you're going to hear an awful lot tonight about our water quality monitoring program, and here's a map that some of you have seen before. It shows all of the different sampling locations for our water quality monitoring program. We've got 13 teams of folks, over 100 volunteers that do the sampling and the work in the lab to analyze the samples. And it is amazing setup and amazing program that Audra does a tremendous job running. I'm going to let her and Mike tell you about that. And before I hand off to them, though, I'm going to say a few words about our other programs. So as many of you know, we focus on three big areas other than water quality monitoring: education, recreation, and restoration. So our education program is grown by leaps and bounds. We've been doing environmental education for a long time, about 25 years, and over the time we've worked with 42,000 plus students now. And last year alone, we worked with over 2,000 students. And I got to give a special shout out to our education director, Johnny Dwyer. He came in at a difficult time right after the pandemic, which had basically shut down our environmental education program. Schools were not doing field trips. They weren't allowing students to go out. They weren't allowing us even to come into the classroom if we were wearing a mask. So the education program was shut down essentially for the better part of 2 years, and Johnny had to rebuild it from scratch. And he has done a truly amazing job of that, again, to the point where last year we had contact with over 2,000 students. Think about that. For an organization our size to have that many contacts and to take that many kids out to the creek and introduce them to watershed ecology and all the critters and fish that are out there, and what that can mean for the future of getting the message out, not only about the Mill Creek, but all of our streams and rivers and our environment. So we, again, just going to scroll through. If this works, I'm going to scroll through some pictures. Excuse me. It was working a second ago. No, no. Give me 1 second. Apologize for that, everyone. A little technical difficulty there. Technology is your friend, except when it's not. Again, some great pictures of Johnny and some of our staff and volunteers getting wonderful groups of kids out into the stream, out into the environment. Another thing that Johnny has really accomplished is has created summer programming. I mean, in the past, we mainly were doing stuff during the academic year. Now we do all kinds of programming through the summers, and this is just a short list of those. But one of my favorites personally is the Makatiwa Anglers program, and this is a program that Johnny created from scratch to get kids from urban neighborhoods out into the creek and teaching them how to fish. A lot of kids don't have an opportunity even to get to the stream at all, much less learn how to fish. And Johnny has been able to round up grant money, and we supply all of the equipment. We have volunteers that come and help teach them, and once a week, most of the summer, we're taking kids out to different places in the watershed and going fishing, but also doing some hikes and some other environmental lessons. Again, some good fish out there to catch. It's an awfully big carp, and a nice striped bass there. And the summer ends with a camp out. Again, something that some of these folks have not had a chance to do before. And the picture on the left there is the camp out from last summer. And I think I saw Ken Petrin come in the room. There's Ken in back. Ken and the UC field station out on the west side of Hamilton County hosted the camp out last year, and Ken has been a great ally and friend that we're also doing some research with. So I'd like to thank him for that. But again, it's a wonderful experience for these youth in the summer. Next, I just want to talk briefly about recreation. You know, one of our challenges now that the stream is returning to health and really is, you know, leaping forward in terms of the water quality and the fish populations and the macro populations all doing great. But, you know, if you're from Cincinnati and you're more than 30 years old and you grew up here, you've been here for a while, you know, all you heard when you were growing up was Mill Creek is an awful place. Why in the world would you ever want to be in there? It smells bad, it looks bad. Why would you go there? And that perception is still with us, even though the stream is incredibly much improved. So one of our challenges is bringing people back to the creek. And we do that now in a variety of ways. We have urban stream adventures. I think a lot of you in the room have been part of those. We take people paddling on Mill Creek. The bird life on Mill Creek and in different parts of the watershed is amazing. You know, even 10 years ago, we weren't seeing any bald eagles. Now we see them on an almost daily basis. Eagles, ospreys, herons, ducks. It's just amazing. So there's great bird watching, a lot of different places in the watershed. Excuse me. As we mentioned before, the fishing has come along really, really well. The fish populations are recovering quickly. You know, 10 years ago, would you thought you'd see a picture of a guy fly fishing on Mill Creek? And that picture is literally in the middle of town. That's like in South Cumminsville, you know, and they're catching lots of fish there. And that's on the right is our buddy Sean Tyler, who many of you may remember from last year. He gave a very inspirational talk about his fishing along Mill Creek and what's that meant to him. He's still out there several times a week. He sends us all kinds of great pictures of all the fish that he's catching. And it's coming further and further upstream. He tells us where he's catching these fish, and you can just see them advance, largely because of the work that Bennett is doing with Lowhead Dam mitigation, and he's going to talk about that a little bit later. And last but not least, I do want to talk about all of our work with bike trails. And that's being done with a lot of great partners. I know I saw Brad Bowers from Tri-State Trails in the room back there. We're working extensively with Tri-State Trails and a host of other partners on two big projects. One is to extend the Mill Creek Greenway Trail from where it currently ends in South Cummonsville at the end of the solid yellow line, all the way down to the Ohio River. The purple lines are parts of the Crown network that are in the works, and we want to complete the Crown by just bringing it down the west side of Mill Creek. We're also working with all the same partners and the city on putting in some quality access ramps for the public to be able to get to the stream easily. Right now we're looking first at two spots, one down by the Barrier Dam, Guest Street, not far from where we're sitting right now, and another up by Yellow Bridge. Those are both in the planning phase, and we're making good progress on those. The other big trail project, again, with Tri-State Trails, with great parts of Hamilton County, and a coalition of 14 suburban communities have all come together and are working on what we're calling the Triangle Trail, which is going to be a 40-plus mile trail system that'll go up the main stem of Mill Creek, then up Sharon Creek to Sharon Woods, then across over into Winton Woods, and then follow the West Fork of Mill Creek back down to the main stem, going through many, many different communities. Much of that is already built. Some of it is already funded and is going to be built in the next couple of years. And we're in the midst of an engineering feasibility study to study the potential routes through the other phases of the project that haven't been built yet. And I know that Brad is working very, very hard on that right now. And that's going to be another incredible system that'll, in the end, will join up with the Mill Creek Greenway Trail down here at the south end. So not too far distant future, you know, you'll be able to take an 80-mile bike ride up and around the Mill Creek Valley and through all of our suburban communities. It will be truly amazing. And it's a great way to bring people to the creek and see it for themselves and appreciate its beauty and how much it has recovered. And last but not least, I have to mention our friends in the Mill Creek Yacht Club and all of the work that they do. Not only, and there are many of the Yacht Club members are here with us tonight, they also do incredible work for us. Not only are they our guides on many of our public paddling trips, but, you know, for them, doing cleanups is recreation. They like to get out there and get hands dirty, feet wet. They don't mind, you know, getting in the mud and prying tires out of the dirt. You know, in the last couple of years alone, literally, you know, 1,000 tires, 10,000 pounds of scrap metal, and many hundreds of tons of other trash have been pulled out of the creek by the yacht club and volunteers that have worked with them. You know, they have done such an amazing job for 25 plus years, and many of them were among the very first to be crazy enough to think that they could do something to clean up Mill Creek. So actually I'd like to give a quick round of applause to the Mill Creek Yacht Club. These people are amazing. I'll just flip through a couple more pictures here. All right. And now, you all are probably tired of hearing me talk, so I'm going to hand it off to our restoration project director, Dr. Bennett Kotler, who will talk about our other big program, all the restoration work that we're doing along Mill Creek. And things are hopping. We have never been busier in the history of the organization with restoration as we are now. And that's largely down to Bennett's incredible work and his ability to find projects and find grants. So thanks, Bennett. Come on up.
Well, thanks everyone for coming out. And when I look out across the room, about half of the room has been to cleanups and work parties and doing work out in the field on a volunteer basis. And we really get incredible things done thanks to you and doing that work on a volunteer basis. But my day job is writing grants and helping to conceive of projects and implementing them and doing these large-scale restoration projects that are contracted out. This photo is a favorite of mine. Yes, taken on an urban stream adventure showing you the intersection between what we do, but it is at the largest lowhead dam remaining in the Mill Creek. It is just above Galbraith Road at River Mile 11.8, and it is among the 11 projects that I have running that has funding. And that is going to be removed in the coming years, along with the second largest one, so that I already have funded. So take a good look at it, because it'll be mitigated, and I'll show you and focus on a project which is in a different stage of the life cycle of projects. But real quickly, you can see we've got 11 ongoing projects in one stage or another. We have over $4 million worth of grant money to fund that work. And what I've completed in this past year that I'm buttoning up and need to report by the end of March is one lowhead dam and one wetland project. I divided up a quick look at each of those 11 projects by their location in the watershed. I'll start up at the top. And in fact, we have one in Butler County, which is going to be installed this summer. That's Westchester Wetlands. It's right across from Ellis Lake Wetlands, so it's adding in high-quality habitat adjacent to high-quality habitat. We hope all those waterfowl that they come over for a visit. Another project you see, so that I indicated that in yellow, indicating that it's already in design. The one in blue right next to it is a second one that we have that's been funded, and that one is Westfall Preserve. Once we see that we've got one project, as part of our research, we tend to look around and see what else is related, what's some other potential parcels for us to work on. And this is the idea, again, of these wetlands, these areas, these floodplains adjacent to the Mill Creek itself. Mill Creek is a watershed. It's not just a stream. And an obvious location are those stream-side adjacent floodplain areas. And then you can see that there's one more, which is also a wetland, and that's at Twin Creek Preserve in Sharonville. And I'm going to focus in, and I'll show you some really great imagery of that project, which is finished up. It's one of them that I'll close up by the end of the month. Most of our projects, for one reason or another, are in the middle of the watershed, kind of stretching from Sharonville down to Reading and Arlington Heights. The Sharon Creek Restoration Project restores nearly a mile of Sharon Creek that was acquired from Norfolk Southern Railroad by our partner, Great Parks of Hamilton County. Originally, I wrote one grant, and that was rejected, interestingly, because the Revolving Loan Program of Ohio, WRRSP is its acronym, they did not think that the Mill Creek had recovered as much as it had. They also had concerns about urban inputs, about inputs from outside the project area, and they have a point. It's hard to control what goes into the Mill Creek. After having it rejected, I broke it apart into 4 phases. 2 of the projects are funded by the 319 program, Clean Water Act funding from the Fed, and the other 2 are from Clean Ohio. So we funded it, and there's $1.8 million to restore a mile of Sharon Creek. Our access road is then going to be turned over to the property owner, Great Parks, so that Tri-State Trails can use that access road to eventually build a recreational path. So again, synergism between different entities is crucial. You can see we have an incredible number of low-head dams. River Mile 13.4 was just funded. River Mile 12.2 at Clark Road in Arlington Heights, and I'll show you, that'll be the other case that I spotlight. That one's done. I need to submit the paperwork by the end of March. River Mile 12.0, Bone Crusher Falls. I like to keep the numbers, so keep the romance out of the projects and keep these sites straight. That one's in design, and that one should also be moved along by summer. And then I showed you the one that I had in the front image, 11.8, largest one remaining. 13.4 is the second largest one. When those 2 get done in the coming year or 2, the Mill Creek is going to be open to the Ohio River. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be really astounding, and some people at times wonder, well, where will the fish come from? Where can they repopulate the Mill Creek? They're going to swim up from the Ohio River. So that's going to be a great year. Let's see. Okay, moving down to Lower Mill Creek, again, this is an arbitrary way of dividing up the entire Mill Creek watershed. But I just want to point out that we don't have any active projects there. At the bottom, yeah, it's worth noting, we do have historical projects. The Hartwell Golf Course, our largest project ever, was in the Lower Mill Creek, as was the 2 low-head dams at Solway Park. Nonetheless, we don't have any now. And so that's why we always need to refocus our attention and throughout the watershed, and we're always looking for partners to help alert us to and help us cultivate projects which typically take years. The design, you can give birth to one of those babies in 9 months. The construction takes 2 months. But yeah, pulling together the different parts, that can take years. One of the issues that's going to be tackled is the scour hole in 2024, which has formed at the confluence of West Fork with the main stem of Mill Creek, where a young resident of South Cumminsville drowned the other year. So that needs to be fixed for public safety, well beyond environment. And the other big project that I'm going to be looking at, and probably one of the reasons that we don't have as many projects, is we're lacking a 9-element plan, which opens up the door to funding from the 319 program. And so that's going to be one of my big charges. There's that small inset mat at the very top. You can see where West Fork is located. It's in the southwest side of the Mill Creek. It is the only one of our watersheds, sub-watersheds, that doesn't have one of these plans yet. All of the other 4 do. And in fact, the last one was just approved this past month. So we have double the number of sub-watersheds covered and open to 319 funding than we did in the past years. But focusing on West Fork is going to be one of the big activities for 2024. I'll highlight this chart from Midwestern Biodiversity's 2021 report done for MSD, where they collected chemical and biological data. You can see that there's the column from top to bottom that's highlighted in yellow. Oops, I guess I didn't change that. There's the one all the way over to the right, which is QHEI, and that stands for habitat. And that's a mixed bag in terms of so this is summarizing up, again, the water quality and biological quality of the Mill Creek. Well, the habitat is mixed from exceptional to fair. So that's, that may, sets the stage for good biology. Macroinvertebrates is the ICI value that I highlight in red. Macroinvertebrates throughout throughout the watershed are all in attainment. They're all up to standard for a quality environment. The fish are the ones that are not in attainment. But again, by focusing on the low-head dams, we're going to fix the fish. We're going to give them a free corridor to migrate through and inhabit the entire watershed. But yeah, numbers like this are how I get grants, by making a data-driven argument. So I'm going to tell you about 2 projects and show you, a bunch of eye candy of what projects look like in development. This one is the Lowhead Dam at Clark Road at River Mile 12.2, just off of Reading. It was a $229,000 project funded by the 319 program. And the border is that it's in Arlington Heights. You see 2 different views. Yes, it was a somewhat low head dam, but it's still an obstruction to a segment of the diversity of fish. So you're reducing diversity when you have a reduction in environmental diversity. So what one of these low-head dam mitigation projects look like is the following. I'll point out there was an active business, actually 2 active businesses on one side of the road, so traffic control was a concern. One of the biggest issues of concern was getting down to the creek. Our creek is so incised that the banks are so steep that the firm that we use, Benchmark, they had used rock to build an access path down the stream bank into the stream. And you can see one of the thrilling and terrifying images of one of the excavator operators navigating their way down into the creek. And once you got one down, we had 3 excavators moving rock from the top of the bank onto the stream bank in and placing it. God, this is just like Netflix. Mm-hmm. I want to show you this view, which is standing at the top of the bank, looking down that stream bank, and you can see some of the materials put onto the bank to restore the bank that had been worked on. But you also get a really nice view of the ripple of the structure, where you can see the rock being placed from downstream on the right to upstream on the left to where that top part of the dam was located. And then when we all were done, we had members of the yacht club try it out. And it's interesting because you can design a low-head dam, or you can restore the environment to meet any one of a number of goals. It could be for ecology, but we also want it restored for recreation. And they are two different goals. A structure in a stream that provides the best ecological lift may provide a rough ride for paddlers. So we checked it out, and you should come for a visit sometime. The second project I want to highlight that I'm completing this month is the Twin Creek Wetland Enhancement. That was done at the original Twin Creek Preserve in Sharonville. It's a 10-year-old project, but years of observation showed that the wetland was not getting as wet as intended, and therefore the vegetation had not shifted over to wetland vegetation as much as was expected. So I got this incredibly small grant. Should have added more to it. Only some $57,000, again from Ohio EPA 319 program, to amend that. We have some beautiful drone shots, thanks to Dave. Johnny's in training for operating drone video for the Mill Creek Alliance. And here's a series of photos showing you what happened in the course of that project. Again, the same firm, Benchmark, worked on the interior of the wetland before opening it up. As you can see on the lower left, what was done was, after reshaping the interior, was excavating out the pipes and lowering their elevation so that more water would get piped into the center of that preserve, into the wetland, than had been happening previously. In the center, you can see there's rock armoring of the piping to hold it into place. And then you can see a member of Benchmark seeding it. And then you can see, after a rain event, more of it is wet, which is the whole goal, is to get more water into that wetland, have it be processed by the vegetation that'll eventually get established to improve water quality, having a wetland polishing water just below the Butler County Reclamation plant. And that's what it looks like currently. It's new. It's still settling in, but we're looking forward to how it'll develop in the coming years. I do want to point out, nonetheless, despite doing this contract work funded by grants, we still are interested in having work parties. And in fact, what we're realizing is what we really need are people to adopt a spot, is to monitor a spot every month or so. Come out with your kid, your dog, your coffee, and notice what's going on. We need more eyes on these sites, and then we can come out for the occasional work party and take care of invasives, or maybe get more plants in the ground earlier before these restoration projects, which have no post-project funding for maintenance. You know, if we can get volunteers coming out and filling in that gap. In fact, this weekend, if you're not up to anything, we have an event. We'll be collecting live stakes, live dormant willow stakes on Saturday, and then we'll be installing them on Sunday. You can find information from either Hamilton County Soil and Water District or come to our website. Well, with that, I'd like to introduce Eric Bartles from Hamilton County Public Health Department. Thank you.
Can everyone hear me okay? Yes. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Bartle with Hamilton County Public Health. I'm a registered environmental health specialist. And, my primary job at the health department is doing illicit discharge detection and elimination. Louder? Okay, let me turn it. Shouldn't have touched it. No, I just made it worse. Okay. Can you hear me now? Yeah. So, my primary job at the health department is trying to track down illicit discharges, and that's kind of vague, but it can be any sort of pollution that's going into our local water bodies in the county. The big one we always are dealing with is sewage. The health department is probably most known for dealing with home sewage treatment systems. There's a delay. There we go. This is the Mill Creek watershed. This gives you an idea of how many home sewage treatment systems or septic systems are in the Mill Creek watershed. The majority of them are discharging home sewage treatment systems, which means they treat the sewage and then they discharge it into a local water body, so a creek, stream, Mill Creek, or the closest water body. And if these aren't operating properly, then you have untreated wastewater going into your water bodies. Which is why we have health inspectors who are going out every single day checking these things to make sure that they're functioning properly so that treated wastewater is going into our systems instead of untreated wastewater. And so and those systems, those discharging septic systems can fail for a variety of reasons. The most common one is a motor burns out or some electrical problem occurs with them, and then we have untreated wastewater going into our streams. And so it's really important that the health department continues to monitor and regulate these. We have over 20,000 of them in the county, but this gives you an idea of what the Mill Creek watershed looks like. When they're not working properly, you get this anaerobic bacteria, and E. coli will spike. And that anaerobic bacteria, for those that understand water quality, typically looks like that photo in the bottom right, that whitish gray. It can be kind of gross and nasty. But it's something to definitely keep an eye out for those of you paddling out on the Mill Creek. Please keep an eye out for this, and if you see it, please don't hesitate to let the health department know if it's not an MSD problem. Yeah, there you go. You're welcome. So as you guys all know, MSD is responsible for maintenance of their sewer lines, but if it's a private sewer line or a private lateral or something that they don't own, then it's the health department's responsibility to do enforcement on it. So if it's a private line owned by a business or a homeowner or something like that, then it's our job to make sure that they make a repair on those lines so that untreated wastewater isn't going into our local creeks and streams. And so it's our group and we're a team of 4 that issues notices of violations to make sure that that happens and to make sure that sewer lines get repaired so we don't have untreated wastewater going into our streams. The most common issue we've been coming across lately are cross connections, and what these are, the best way to describe them is sanitary sewage from homes discharging and plumbed and piped straight into the storm sewers that are discharging into our local water bodies. And it's not like somebody did some illegal plumbing work recently. These are typically old problems that happened 50, 60, 70, 100 years ago. Some plumber incorrectly plumbed a sanitary sewer line, and now it's been discharging raw sewage into a storm drain that goes to the Mill Creek or the Little Miami or one of our local creeks or streams, and it's been that way for a long time. And so that's why it's really important to keep an eye out. we're a team of 4, and we go out and do dry weather screenings on the storm outfalls to make sure we don't see any signs of pollution. But it's the more people looking in our water bodies, the better, and the better, So if you see something, please give us a call, especially in the county. So we deal with this only in the county. If you have these issues in the city, it's not something the Hamilton County Health Department can deal with, but definitely reach out to the city if you do find this. Some of the other things we deal with, we work with microbreweries, all sorts of illicit discharges. So we work on a wide variety of illicit discharges into the storm infrastructure, not just sewage. A big one is spent grain. We've dealt with almost all the microbreweries that pop up. They have a real problem with spent grain and how to manage it properly so that it's not discharging into our creeks and streams. Spent grain, it's really high in organics, and it can be quite hazardous to local ecology. So we work with them and come up with creative ways to keep it on their own properties so that it's not discharging into our streams, so that we don't have algae blooms and the whole creek turning black because of it. So, and most of the microbreweries work with us really well to make sure that happens. Concrete washout is another big one we're dealing with at the health department. Yes, I'm sure if you've paddled the Mill Creek, you've probably seen this problem. You see it on a regular basis. So concrete washout, when a concrete truck pours concrete somewhere, they have a truck that they have to clean out. Well, where are they going to clean their truck out, with the fine particulates and hose down their truck so it doesn't get ruined? We don't want it going into our storm sewers, and so it shouldn't go into our storm sewers, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And so if you see concrete washout or any sort of saw cutting, those are real problems because those fine particulates go into our stream systems, and our fish can't filter them very well through their gills, and it often leads to fish kills. So if you see it, please let us know. I have to get away on that. Okay. The next thing we deal with as well is just grease. So kind of gross, but restaurants, cooking grease and things like that. We don't want restaurants dumping their grease into local catch basins because it just ends up in our water bodies. So, fast food establishments, at restaurants, typically we see these problems in foreign establishments where there might be a language barrier or some sort of problem where we're not communicating clearly why you can't be putting grease into a storm drain. But once we bring it to their attention, they almost always come into compliance, because when it comes to restaurants and the Board of Health, we have a little bit of authority. And so they normally come into compliance really well once we talk to them and explain the problem and explain the grease does not go into the storm drain. It goes into a grease dumpster, or it goes into a collection agency of some sort. So just one to keep an eye out for as well. Soaps and detergents are another big one we deal with, so car washing and things like that. We kind of draw the line when it comes to detergents and soaps. If you're washing your car in your own driveway, we're not going to hunt you down and write you a notice of violation. But if you're a business or you're washing cars, you're a car washing business and you're washing cars every single day, you shouldn't be letting all the soaps and detergents go straight into your local water body. So that's where we draw the line of what's going to be accepted and what's not. And so, if you have questions about detergent, we run into a real problem when it comes to sump pumps, because people's washing machines are typically in their basements, and their washer and dryer are in the basement, and so is the sump pump. So they'll often run their laundry, drain line, over to their clear water sump pump pits, and then that kicks out to the storm drain or kicks out to the street, and then we've got soap suds that are ending up in our stream system. So it's a big one we deal with. We write a lot of notices of violation on that, but it's pretty easy plumbing repair typically. We don't want all that nasty soapy water and used laundry water going into our stream system, so it's something to keep an eye out for. The biggest tell when it comes to detergents is if you see any sort of rainbow sheen on the foam, it's a dead giveaway for us that it's some sort of detergent. However, if you can have foam in a stream and a creek, and it might be naturally occurring, or it might be something we can't enforce on. It has to be some sort of point source pollution for us to enforce on it. And that doesn't mean we can necessarily do something just because there's foam in a creek. But if there's rainbow sheen on that foam, we will figure out where the soap's coming from. And we'll track it down and see, where the problem is. So. These are 3 photos that I wanted to put in here because all of these look kind of gross. But in reality, these are not sources that are something that the health department can enforce on. So the one on the left, those are calcium deposits. Those are not, there's nothing I can do about calcium deposits. It looks really gross. The middle one looks like oil, but it also, that rainbow sheen also occurs with leaf decay. And so the big way you can tell, we tell, is if we see a rainbow sheen like that, we'll take a stick or something and we'll stir it up. And if the rainbow sheen comes back together and congeals, we know immediately it's petroleum. But if it crumbles into pieces, like that rainbow sheen crumbles into smaller pieces, it lets us know that it's some sort of organic decay. Typically, it's leaf decay. We see this one all the time in the fall. And we got a lot of calls about it. And we'd rather have the calls. We'd rather have people call in about it and us come out and tell them there's nothing, there's not oil that was dumped on the ground, than not call. So please, if you see it and you're unsure, let us know. But it's something you should definitely consider. The photo on the right, that orange stuff. Does anyone know what that orange stuff is? Yeah, it's iron. So we have an iron oxide bacteria in Hamilton County. It's all over the place. When you see it, though, it looks like hazardous waste material. It looks really disgusting, and it definitely looks like pollution. But it's naturally occurring. There's nothing necessarily that I can enforce on, and you'll see this stuff just coming out of the ground, this iron oxide bacteria. So if you see it, it's not something necessarily we can do about it, but it's definitely something to note. But it's not point source pollution that I can write a notice of violation. So. Okay. Last thing I want to touch on is just if you see anaerobic conditions, the clear sign for us is when a creek turns black or gray or white and has an odor to it. It's a dead giveaway for us that there's some sort of illicit discharge, some sort of sewage getting into that storm sewer, and we're going to track it down upstream to figure out where it's coming from, and then figure out who's responsible. So, thanks.
Hi. Now that we've covered some of our achievements in education, restoration, and recreation, now it's time to turn our full focus. The reason we're here tonight to celebrate water quality. Yay. If you have not met me, I am Audra Salady Roberts. I am the program coordinator for the Water Quality Monitoring Program. And I didn't just start out in this realm. I actually started in marine science. That's what my background is in, and I spent 14 years working in public aquariums doing water quality, life support, and animal husbandry before I made the leap into other stuff. While many tools of the trade are very similar between water quality in a fish tank and water quality in the real world, how you deal with those problems are very, very different. In a fish tank, I could push a button, I could turn a valve, I could add a treatment, and I'm not saying that it was easy. It was oftentimes very difficult, but hey, I was in total control of the problem. Just me, could fix it. Now, turn it to the real world. The problems in the real world are infinitely more complex, right? It takes a village of scientists, politicians, landowners, local corporations, public utilities, and people like you and me, community stakeholders. Get them all working together nicely to be the change that we want to see in the world, right? And how often does that actually happen? Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. So even if we do this perfectly, even if we did, oftentimes Mother Nature steps in and has a mind of her own, and it's still a mystery to solve these water quality problems in the natural environment. So the Water Quality Monitoring Program, the Mill Creek Alliance, just celebrated its 10-year anniversary. We started in 2013. 2023 was our 10-year anniversary. We have grown significantly, not only in the number of sites that we monitor, but also in the tests that we perform and the number of volunteers that we have performing all of that work. In 2023, we had 85 people working in the field, 21 analysts working in the lab, and 9 of those people did both jobs, spent the whole day with us. Our activities occur on the second Saturday of every month from March through November, and we collect water samples from 57 different sampling sites, document the field observations and log those, and then between the team in the field and the team in the lab, we analyze for 10 different water quality parameters. We do adhere to a very strict quality assurance program plan that ensures that our data meets level 2 credible data standards. That means that we are on file with the Ohio EPA, and how we do things is very structured. And our data is capable of allowing the Ohio EPA to monitor pollution controls, promote public awareness and education. It cannot be used for legal matters, but it is very informative to the Ohio EPA in other ways. Mostly in that we are monitoring areas that they don't have the time to monitor. So we're filling in the gaps where they can't step in. This data that we collect is available on our website. It is shared with the Ohio EPA, and it is presented formally at this very event that happens every year. We are also actually working in partnership with the Hamilton County Conservation District this year and their AmeriCorps folks that they hired for me to upload our data into the federal EPA database. So just another level of data sharing, which is pretty exciting for us. Can you tell I love public speaking? All right, so water quality analysis, not a money-making venture. No one's getting rich over here. We spend a lot more than we certainly bring in. And it is time-consuming, not only in terms of the chemical reagents that are used, but also in the maintenance of scientific instrumentation that we have. How expensive is it? Well, our volunteers provided 1,087 hours of service last year, and when you see the breakdowns, about $175,000 worth of service, which isn't nothing to see. So I am very appreciative of my volunteers and the work that they do. I love all of my volunteers, but I would like to call out a few people. I was looking through some old records last month, and I noticed a few names that popped out in the 2013 data sheets. So the people in the 10-year crew, they were actively participating in 2013, and they were still actively participating in 2023, 10 years of service, which I think is pretty cool. I would also like to honorably mention the samplers with perfect attendance, the people in the middle list made it to every, yeah, I saw that fist bump over there. John and Mark, these folks made it to every single event last year. Yes. And for the lab crew, they didn't have perfect attendance. But there were several people that did put in over 20 hours of service, which I think is also a pretty nice level of dedication. I will point out that Mark Crisanti there put in over 40 hours of service last year. So an applause to all of these people. And really to any of my volunteers who show up, you make my life so much easier. So thank you very much. I would be remiss if I did not mention Aaliyah Mann. She was my right-hand woman last year, my blue team lab lead. So what do? We test for these things. We check for phosphate, nitrate. These are nutrients. They are naturally occurring in ecosystems. Life can't really happen without them. And in normal levels, everything works out just fine. But enter humans into the system, and we tend to add extra nitrate and phosphate, which causes lots of extra problems. Conductivity is a measure of total dissolved salts in the water. Now, this is a freshwater environment, right? We're not supposed to have a lot of salt. It's not the ocean. And there is a certain amount that naturally occurs just out of geology, right? So that's okay. But the road salts in the winter, byproducts from water treatment, they do add conductivity to our waterways. And at a certain point, year over year, we're seeing a steady increase. So it's one of the problems that we're most concerned about these days. Turbidity, how clear is the water? It can get more turbid by sedimentation, through pollution, or increased algal growth. We check pH. pH around here tends to be a little bit on the basic side, somewhere between 7 and 8 on the pH scale. It's pretty common water quality parameter, but we tend to see even elevated levels of pH around here. Between all of the extra algae that we have that grows and it respires, it releases a lot of extra oxygen into the environment, thus pushing the pH higher than it really ought to be. And also we've got a lot of concrete culverts, don't we? So a lot of that concrete interacting with the water as it flows through the Mill Creek can also buffer the water and make the pH a little higher than it's supposed to be. Coliform and E. coli are naturally occurring bacteria that live in our guts and the guts of many other warm-blooded animals. And it can enter the ecosystem through fecal release. You get a little too much of that and it becomes a human health hazard. Optical brighteners. These are the ingredients in your laundry detergents that make your whites whiter and your brights brighter. There's nothing really wrong with them in and of themselves, and they are generally effectively removed by wastewater treatment. But when we find them in the Mill Creek, that is an indicator that water has somehow got from your laundry machine into the creek as raw, untreated sewage. Chlorophyll, it's pretty easy. It's plants. Plants, algae. The more chlorophyll you see, chances are the more algae there is free floating in the water. And you want the right amount of the right plants and algae in your creek. And lastly, but not least, temperature. It's the easiest thing for us to measure, but it's probably one of the most critical. I think we can all appreciate that rapid changes in temperature are uncomfortable. Not just for us, but for animals in the ecosystem as well. I'm never going to go the right way. We do an analysis on our output, our data, and we fit them into a ranking system. This is based on a couple different sources. What the EPA or Ohio EPA recommends is a healthy level for some of these things. And some of it comes from observations of fish counts, macroinvertebrate counts, what we see, what our native species thrive best at, and that guides some of these rankings. Again, why do we pick the parameters that we do? Most of them are selected as a way of keeping an eye on sewage effluent. That's one of the biggest problems. As you have things like increased nutrients, evidence of higher optical brighteners, presence of E. coli, the more of these things you have, the more algae is going to grow. Algae kind of loves some of these things. The more algae you have growing, the more oxygen it produces, and the higher the pH goes. So a lot of the things that we test are geared towards diagnosing this problem. So that's it for me. At this point, I would like to introduce Dr. Mike Miller. Mike Miller is Professor Emeritus at the University of Cincinnati. He has over 40 years experience teaching water quality to the world. He's been all over the world in the lab and in labs all over the world doing this work. And he has been an essential part of the Mill Creek Alliance operation and has 10 plus years running the Rivers Unlimited water quality monitoring program. So thank you, Mike, and I'll turn it over to you.
Well, hello, Mill Creek volunteers. I don't get to see you ever, really, but I do get to see your data. And, of course, that's what I love to mine. I'm a level 3 water chemist in the state of Ohio, and I train level 2 volunteers for the Little Miami. Chris Hall's here is going to be heading the new Little Miami project. I run the Great Miami project, and also for Audrey and her folks that want to become level 2. We need 2 trained level 2 volunteers at every water quality monitoring event in order to assure that our data are good. It's my turn with this. Well, I've got an observation here. Today the Mill Creek's like an new interstate going through the urban core of a city, but unlike the urban interstate, which divided cities and peoples into rich and poor, we're trying to use the Mill Creek to bring the two sides together. And we're doing this with what Bennett just talked about by trying to improve the biology through removing physical barriers and increasing the habitat quality. The Mill Creek has been, had to handle waste only in the last decade as Clean Water Act and the Ohio EPA and the governor's H2O water program, H2O Ohio water program gotten started, and we're trying to get rid of these dumps. There are probably 80 polluted sites along the edge of the Mill Creek, and I'm going to show you some of those data. These are the last year's data. You saw these. This is the 2022 data with our water quality. Green is 4 to 5, which is excellent. Yellow is compromised, and green is good. We'll say green and blue probably pass the muster for the Clean Water Act, fishable, well, not fishable, swimmable, but good for biological life. The yellow sites are impaired. Well, this is the Great Miami over here, and here's the Mill Creek coming up here, and this is the Butler County Stream Team up here, another group up at Oxford University, where 4 groups monitoring water quality in a semi-coordinated fashion, unlike almost any other urban area in the country. So we can be very proud of that. The Mill Creek is really been kind of beat up. This is channelization. This is channelization completed. This is channelization none. This is the last 1.7 miles of the river that wasn't channelized because the water in it was filled with so many toxics. The workers couldn't work with it, and they stopped dredging it. And there's another point here. You can see this is partially done. So this is, of course, we've redone some of this, and this is done. But this says that it's none or none. Well, that straight stretch right there, of course, is the Miami-Erie Canal, done in 1825. So most of the Mill Creek has been channelized, which means it's deepened and the sides pulled up. It doesn't have a floodplain like it used to. This is the Mill Creek here, and here's I-75. This is Union Center Boulevard up here. This section up here that was opened up by an interstate access in the 1980s, and that's all development since the 1980s. It's almost all warehousing industry and parking lots. You can see the gray. It's impervious. Down here is General Electric and along the Mill Creek. But this provides a hellish impervious surface. You can see the old Mill Creek over here. This is the 100-year floodplain, the upper Mill Creek, this portion up here, used to flood, but now this is all developed and highly, medium development and high development. This is that area that's all warehousing industry, and it's about 80% impervious surfaces. So that we're talking about this upper section here, it's giving us pulses of runoff that may or may be questionable. We've always abused the Mill Creek, and we still do. This is the city of Cincinnati's zoning map. That orange color is industrial. Do you see a Mill Creek? Do you see a greenway? Do you see a floodplain? No. There is no honor whatsoever for our Mill Creek by the city of Cincinnati. We just rezoned this. I testified twice to get them to make a greenway through there, and they wouldn't do it. So it means that currently any industry can come up over to the edge of that creek and build a cement wall straight up. The county commissioners 15 years ago passed an ordinance that there would be a 65-foot top of bank riparian zone with no construction. The city of Cincinnati wouldn't adopt it because they said it was a taking. No place in court has this taking ever been substantiated. It's something that we should do, but that's it. Here's the Mill Creek, and this is income. High income, high income. Here's the Little Miami going up through a high income area. The Great Miami borders a high income area. The urban core is still poor, and we don't have an upwardly mobile middle class to defend the Mill Creek. Hence, the Mill Creek Alliance, and we try to engage the entire area to defend the Mill Creek because we don't have a population base that's necessarily involved. Here's the, we'll start with the rainfall pattern. Last year was a terrible year for rainfall, 39 inches. We've been getting up to 52 inches. The climate change model takes us from this 1970 figure upwards every year, and it's been going up. The Mill Creek the Miami Conservancy District has shown this historically on their website. But you know, here's a 2-inch rainfall. We had one. Here's a couple of 1.5-inch rainfalls, but there's nothing as the season wears on. These are the rainfalls on our sampling dates, and we only had one sampling date on a fairly large rainfall, a 1.3-inch event. This is the runoff from the Mill Creek. Oh, what happened to that big peak of 2.5 inches? It's not there. The spring ones are there because soils are saturated, it's cold, the water comes down, it runs off, and we get runoff. In the summertime, we can lose 25% of the rainfall by interception in the leaves and vegetation, and then evapotranspiration can get rid of a lot of the rest of it. So in the summertime, we don't have nearly the runoff problem from rainfall events. They didn't even register. Now, of course, summer events can be highly spotty. That rainfall event was the Cincinnati Airport. MSD, however, sponsors about 12 rainfall stations. Unfortunately, they don't print the year's date off, so I can't use it. You only get about a week at a time. But the Carthage station measures the rainfall every 10 minutes. I showed you the daily rainfall. This is the 10-minute rainfall. You could see how much flashier the Mill Creek is. These 10-minute events show those little tiny summer rainfall events as striking. But here's 500 CFS, and there are several of them there in the summertime. But you'll notice that there are no events, virtually no events over 500 CFS in the daily discharge. The point is, the Mill Creek is incredibly flashy. When it rains, it peaks. There's no lag between the peak and the rainfall. This is the discharge frequency of the river, the percent frequency and the cumulative frequency by events from 10 CFS to 100. Here's that magical, here's 200 CFS, virtually none. Here's 100. The peak up here is at 20, 30, 40 CFS. Well, 40 CFS is desperately low. The Upper Mill Creek Water Reclamation Facility in Butler County puts out about 15 CFS of nominal discharge. So, you know, 1/3 to 1/2 of the discharge during most of the summer is effluent from one sewer plant up at mile 19.1. And the other way to look at this, here's the discharge one day after a rainfall event, and here's the rainfall in inches. And you'll notice February, March, April, 1 to July. Where'd that August date go? I mean, the point is that the rainfall events that result in runoff are those in the spring, early spring and summer. Those events are supposed to be getting bigger, and we've been blessed by not having a big one. We haven't had a rainfall event over 4.5 inches in decades, and we're due for a big one. Remember, our sewer system is designed to carry a 2-year event. We get a 10-year event rainfall or a 100-year event rainfall. We're going to be underwater like Norwood was from a localized 4-inch event several years ago. Well, let's go back. Here's conductivity. Conductivity in our waters should be 500. We're on limestone. Limestone's calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate soluble with CO2 in the water from air, and to about 500 microsiemens equivalent. This is the measure of conductivity. And what we do is generously say anything over 700 is receiving sewage. What that additional conductivity is coming from salt, sodium chloride, calcium chloride, potassium, the univalent salts. And you can see that here's the Butler County Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant puts in at this point, and it's 1,100. The sewage out of the sewer plant, it comes out about 1,500 microsiemens. Sewage plants do not treat conductivity at all. It goes right through the plant, unless it's an industrial and it's a trivalent iron or something like that. They are not going to treat it. But this says that the water starting at the Butler County Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant all the way down to the Ohio River, this is being diluted by the Ohio River here at the mouth, are being enhanced by effluent or street salt. But there was no overland flow, so it's not street salt. It's not moving that way. Here's the conductivity again. This time I'm showing the annual variation. So you can see here's the wintertime high flow, and here's the summertime low flow. It keeps going up. So although it was 1,000 here, you can see it went up to 1,700 on one date. This is not good for fish. We start particularly going after darters, and in order to meet the IBI score for the state of Ohio, we need about 5 darters or 6 darters in our waters. And you know, we get one that's resistant, usually a rainbow darter. But here's the pH of the Mill Creek. What we're trying to do in Ohio is keep the streams from getting so green from nutrients that they form blue-green algal blooms, and we get the Toledo syndrome, where you can't drink the water, or the 2014 syndrome in the Ohio River when 600 miles of it were contaminated by Microcystis aeruginosa, putting out a hepatotoxin that's dangerous to you and anybody that gets in the water. And in order to do that, pH needs to stay under about 8.3. Over 8.3, it's being driven by intense photosynthesis. Algae, when they're growing, uses CO2 out of the water. They run short of CO2, so they use an enzyme called carbonic anhydrase to lyse bicarbonate, HCO3, into CO2 plus an OH. The CO2 they can use for photosynthesis. The OH raises the pH of the water. So the pH of the water over 8.3, this green line up here, would indicate that we've got photosynthesis is so high we could have an algal bloom. We did not have any problems with chlorophyll in the Mill Creek this year. Turbidity. Turbidity is a kind of a measure of how much algae are in the water at low flow. In the wintertime, it's how much silt is suspended. But this is our wintertime suspension, probably up here. But the turbidity, we want it to be under 20, and by and large, it is under 20. And it's probably largely algal cells, but it's not alarmingly high. The total phosphorus is the one that the governor has come down on hard with his the governor's H2 Ohio water policy. That is designed to reduce phosphorus runoff, particularly from agricultural fields, but also nitrogen, the nutrients that can cause algal blooms. And the state of Ohio, Bob Milton and others have come up with a suggested value of 0.1 milligrams per liter. That's this blue line down here. Anything over 0.1 can start causing algal blooms. Well, it didn't cause an algal bloom in the Mill Creek. Doesn't mean it won't cause one later in the Ohio River or the Gulf of Mexico. But you can see that our concentration is over 4. There's 5 milligrams per 0.5 milligrams per liter, and it's over 0.4. The upper Mill Creek, here's the wastewater treatment plant. The upper Mill Creek, coming out of that area that's covered with warehouses, but also has Montgomery Mason and a lot of golf courses and other things in the upland, is coming out with very low phosphorus. That phosphorus looks like a point source. This year, because of low water flow, it's particularly severe. This is double any phosphorus levels we've ever seen in the Mill Creek. Nutrients, here's the problem. Here's daily discharge. There's that 500 CFS. We didn't have many high events. This is the nitrate concentration, but you can see the nitrates are going up as the discharge goes down because point sources become more prominent. Phosphorus, same story. The values go up as the water flow goes down because point sources are important. We got 2 point sources on the Mill Creek, the Glendale sewage treatment plant on Town Run and the Butler County Upper Mill Creek Water Reclamation Facility, which overall is an excellent facility. But this year was an unusual year, so we've got problems. Here's the nitrate in the Mill Creek. Nitrate in the Mill Creek can be about 10 times as high as the phosphorus, and we'd like to have it at 1 milligram per liter. This is the goal for the industrial agricultural land. And you can see the values in the creek are much higher, and this is the monthly variance in that value. Any one of these values, that value right there, has got 9 dates and 9 dates and in it. So this is an average of 9. Let's go on to E. coli density. For some reason, E. coli were high this year. Normally, we say low flow, E. coli are low. The E. coli in all the other streams I work with were exceptionally low this year because high water usually brings the E. coli out of the mud and distributes them. And we always say don't go in the water for 3 or 4 days after a rain event when it's muddy because the E. coli are high. And here we are this year with the E. coli being very high in the Mill Creek, and I have no good reason for it. Eric just told us about the septic systems, and septic systems could be a partial, but most of the septic systems aren't going to flow into the river at this time of year. But this is 126. This is the recreation, swimmable down here, and whole body recreation down here. That value of 410 is an ultra high value that 10% of the values can't go over. So you could push the recreation up maybe to this height, but we really shouldn't be. This is a no contact area above 1030. We shouldn't have had any canoe trips on the river this year. And we've got to inform people that they do take a risk whenever you go out on fresh waters. Folks with open cuts, don't get water on your face or any of your ears, eyes, nose, and don't be immune compromised by taking a bunch of drugs. And other than that, you're taking a risk when you go out in our waters. And I can't say anything, but these were very high values this year, well over 1,000, 2,000. Suspended chlorophyll, this is our index of algal biomass. 30 is the level the state of Ohio would like to stay under. And of course, we're well under 30. And the chlorophyll peaks down here in the lower 7 miles where the channel is a trapezoidal channel and the water is incubated in open sunshine and can grow a little better. But we're not having algal problems in the river. Our detergent whiteners, I don't know what to say about this. I just heard Audrey say, these things are reduced by sewer plants. Well, I followed this stuff through our sewer plant out there at Butler County. It starts about 120 out of your dishwasher, or out of your washing machine with a rinse added into it. And it has about 90 when it gets 90 units on the scale when it gets it into the sewer plant. And by the time it comes out of the sewer plant, it's down to 10 or 15. And, way down here. But for some reason, it came out of the sewer plant this year. Either that or there are other industrial chemicals that fluoresce under in blue light. The blue light could make a variety of things fluorescent, including humics. But this is measuring a white light output. So this could be another chemical and not a detergent. Detergent fluorescent materials are supposed to be weaned out of detergents starting now. I'm going to go on. Water quality rank, that ranking system that Audrey shows that goes from 1 or 2 to 5, 5 being good, 1 being terrible. So here's 5, 4 to 5, here's 3.5 to 4, here's 3 to 3.5, and here's less than 3, 2 plus. And here's our Ohio River, our upper site is excellent, coming out of Butler County. And this is the pattern we've seen every year, actually for probably almost the last 10 years. That Butler County was developed in the 80s when we had retention detention ponds. We've increased the size of retention detention ponds, but they were in existence. They put in curbless gutters, curbless streets that lets water flow off instead of being conduited into a storm sewer. They did do some wetland and stream restoration at that time, and the vegetation is now 35 to 40 years old. And as a result, this area is doing very well. It's just interesting that our older anti-pollution technologies work when they're introduced and enforced. So anyway, here's River Mile 19, where the effluent's coming in from the upper Mill Creek Water Reclamation Facility. And you'll notice that the Mill Creek is somewhat yellow and somewhat green. Yellower upstream, greener downstream. The variance month by month, but each one of these values, now think about it, it's got 8 parameters, 9 dates. There's 72 values averaged in every one of those numbers. So these are fairly robust numbers to evaluate what's going on. This is a pattern we've seen before, and it's not much different than last year. But who's the bad guy? So here's our ranking system. 5 is excellent, blue, green, yellow, red. And here's conductivity. Conductivity in the Mill Creek, way down here, 2.5. It's in bad shape. It's well over what it ought to be, up over 1,000. Turbidity not bad, pH good, nitrate's good. Oh, nitrate's good. You know, this is intriguing. That Butler County facility denitrifies up front to release phosphorus to get very high uptake of phosphorus out of their flocculation, their activated sludge, and then they nitrify it at the end, and the result is they get under 1 milligram per liter of nitrate. So nitrate has never been a problem. Total phosphorus was disaster this year, and I don't know why. It's just the dilution is the answer to pollution, and there was no dilution. E. coli was disastrous. Whiteners were disastrous. Chlorophyll A, but the average of these, which is what I reported in the last graph, you can see was about 3.6. It was in the green. It was in an acceptable level for some parameters. We also look at the tributaries, a whole bunch of tributaries, but the same thing is true. Conductivity, TP, E. coli, whiteners. They're not quite as bad. Only 2 of them are really deep in the red. But here's the tribs that we're talking about. The Ohio River, Lick Run, West Fork Creek, Ross, Bloody Run, Congress Run, West Fork of the Mill Creek, Cooper, Sharon, Town Run, sewer plant right here, East Fork of the Mill Creek, sewer plant right here, Beaver Run. So these are our tribs, and they represent a variety of different areas. You can see them again: Lick Run, West Fork, Ross, Bloody Run, Congress Run, Cooper Creek, Sharon Creek, East Fork of the Mill Creek, Beaver, Town Run, and the West Fork of the Mill Creek with Winton Lake here and Sharon Lake up here. Those lakes are critical. Let's take these are to show the conductivity in the tributaries. This is the river that I showed before, and these are the distribution of the tribs. You'll notice the conductivity of the tributaries overall is less than the river itself. So the source is not mostly tributaries. Here's a Fox Run trib that's very high. Here's a trib to the West Fork that's always been high. Here's West Fork Creek, which just above these sites has got a combined sewer gathering point, and it has always been one of our poorest, even though with no rain. Somehow it's getting into the West Fork Creek, because those are all West Fork Creek sites. The good sites, the ones that are low down here, are from the West Fork of the Mill Creek, West Fork Mill Creek, because of Sharon Woods and the parks, because of Winton Woods and the parks. Winton Woods and Sharon Woods are big phosphorus sinks. They hold 75 to 80% of all the phosphorus that goes into them. So they pre-process the water. Those reservoirs, although we hate them and we're taking out dams like mad, they do treat the water and do a good job of taking out the phosphorus. I did a phosphorus budget on Winton Lake years ago. And, but anyway, you can see that the conductivity of the conductivity is not as bad out of those systems. Let's go to pH. Here's the 8.3 way up here, and all you see here is upper end of Lick Run and West Fork of the Mill Creek. Well, that's West Fork Creek. That's in a wrong place. But here's the lower Lick Run. Lick Run is the most expensive single project to reduce combined sewer overflows, with a tremendous sewer separation project that has separated the forested areas from the urban areas, and it's working, but it's very eutrophic in the upper reaches. Let's go forward. I'm not moving. Here's total phosphorus. Now here's that high phosphorus you saw. This is up to 1 milligram phosphorus per liter. You'll notice the average of the Mill Creek was 0.46. What we want it to be is 0.1. The average of the tribs is 0.37. The tribs, though, do appear to be lower. Here are all the tribs down here. Here's that West Fork of the Mill Creek up here, and this is the Twin Creek Preserve on the East Fork Creek. The Butler County Regional Wastewater Sewer Plant is right here, and then this comes down into the Mill Creek here. So that's the offending source up there. Here's nitrate. Here's the 1 milligram per liter level. You'll notice the tribs are all way down here, very low, and the average of the Mill Creek is only 1.05, which is a beautiful limit. It meets the standard, OEPA standard for nitrate. Here's E. coli in the tribs. Here's that spectacularly high value. You'll notice the E. coli in the tribs is almost as high as in the river. The river was still higher than the tribs. And here's the West Fork locations. But you'll notice that the Lick Run project is down within the range of the other tribs. It seems to be doing the job it was designed to do. Here's the water quality rank. This is the one I just showed you with the yellows and the greens. Yellows becoming more green, the upper being good. But you can see that the water quality ranks going this way are good, and almost all the tribs are higher than the creek. So the water quality in the tribs is better than the creek. So our problem with the creek is, in a low flow year, is direct introduction of materials into the creek. Now I didn't evaluate the GE stream or the Formica stream. Those are water streams from the Great Miami River that are dumped into the Mill Creek sometimes, and I have no data on those. Here's the data for the Mill Creek tributaries. So here's the east side tributaries and the west side tributaries. The good ones are the ones over 4, East Fork of the Mill Creek, above the surplus. So it's good coming out of there. Here's Sharon Creek at Sharon Woods Park, and here's the East Fork at Keener, and another one of those. Interestingly, 3.9, Gorman Heritage Farms has been poor the last 3 or 4 years. This year, it meets its water quality standard. They're putting in wetlands. They're working on their effluents, and it looks like it's working. At least the materials didn't get into the stream. They kept it on the land. Here's the west side tributaries. Cooper Creek at Reading Road is good. It's interesting. This is the one that Adam Lehman was working on to improve the urban runoff. Here's the lower Lick Run at Lick Run Greenway and the upper Lick Run at Lick Run Greenway, and you'll notice they're really very close to being exceptional. So Lick Run is working very well, as it should, in a low flow year. There's just no two ways about it. The worst creek, West Fork Creek at MSD on SC Avenue, and Town Run below the wastewater treatment plant, and the Twin Creek Preserve in East Fork. So these are all sewage related, and this is where the sources were with the lowest scores of any of them. So we looked at it. Here's the 2022 data with blues being, this is the Great Miami over here. Here's the Mill Creek. With blues being good. And we've got some tribs that are good, and a lot of greens in the main stem. Here are the yellows in the upper river, as we saw. But these upper tribs are all good. And in the Great Miami this year, you'll notice that all the agricultural areas along Dry Fork Creek and along Patty's Run are all good to excellent. There's no runoff during low flow years, and as a result, the stream has become incredibly good quality. But this is a pattern we've seen before. It doesn't appear to be a real problem. These data I'm going to present on Friday morning at 9:30 to the Watershed Network If you can get online, you can listen to this story for the Great Miami in 2 days. The last is a summary. Nitrate, phosphorus, E. coli conductivity were well above OEPA. Well, nitrate wasn't. Well above the OEPA standard for rivers, higher than seen in most years. Average values in the Mill Creek were higher than the tributary streams. Yes, rainfall was the driver, only 39 inches, dry essentially from late May through December with no big events. So this was a point source year, not a non-point year. Point sources in Butler County, Upper Mill Creek Water Reclamation Facility had a substantial impact more than most years. Not because the plant wasn't doing what it was designed to do, but because there was just absolutely no dilution. In addition, Guest Street Wastewater Treatment Plant was shut down the week of March 6th that you heard about. We got out there and monitored the E. coli. The E. coli coming down the lower section of the Mill Creek were well over 50,000 colony-forming units per 100 mLs for that week. But it was a very interesting effect. The cold water killed the E. coli so rapidly they disappeared within a day or so. So they were, if it was fresh, they were high. If the water was detained, they went down dramatically. And they did run, during this event, they ran the SSO 700 high-rate treatment facility and the associated disinfection facility at full blast, and they kept the E. coli down right around 1,000 colony-forming units per 100 ml during that event. A real boon to MSD for having the wherewithal to use the high-rate facility to its fullest capacity. However, the bugs and the fish were still getting raw sewage. It just didn't happen to have E. coli in it. And there could have been other impacts. So MBI and sponsorship of MSD did an emergency fish examination in August. And the fish were lower towards the mouth and going up as you went upriver. And it's kind of a standard pattern. I don't think its data has been completely analyzed, but it doesn't look like we didn't have a fish kill or anything disastrous happen during that event. The Mill Creek Alliance has mitigated 2 new low-head dams and is developing 2 wetlands in Butler County that they didn't talk about, associated with an apartment development and industrial development. And, you know, these are going to continue to enhance water quality and habitat quality along the stream bank. And we've got a UC capstone group here working on the Wildermuth wetland to do phosphorus and nitrogen removal in an existing bank-full wetland to see if we can polish the water coming out of that Upper Mill Creek water reclamation facility and improve its water quality dramatically. It would be probably $1 million and a half project. I don't know. They've got new figures that they're going to give me tomorrow, but it's very likely that it could have almost as a pronounced effect on water quality in the river as Lick Run did, but cost one very small fraction of that amount of money. Here's the Wildermuth project. This was built in 2014, redesigned in 2017, and the water this is the East Fork of the Mill Creek. You'll notice it's channelized. The water from a high flow event, about a 4-foot elevation of stage, something like a 1 or 1.5 inch rainfall, will push water into the stream and flood this area. It goes out down here back into the Mill Creek, but the Butler County Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant is right here, and running a pipe up along and dispensing the water in the upper reaches will develop this into a permanent wetland. It's all flat, and when it's flooded with, I don't know what the flow is, but 1 million or 2 million gallons a day, we can expect this to be a beautiful wetland. Currently, it's a dry field of grass, but it would be beautiful for birds and other things. The upper portion of this wetland receives, this is Beaver Pond, and it receives all the surface runoff from a huge area up here that enters this wetland. This one is now a wetland, and it's kept wet by this flow, but this is completely dry, and we're hoping to transform it into an operational system. Anyway, that's, are any of your other students here? Put your hands up, guys. Yeah, this is my crew. I'm proud of what they're doing. So I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mike. I am eternally grateful to this man. I actually started in regional water quality as a volunteer for Rivers Unlimited. I manned the phosphate station, and so that was my entry into this world, and I've stuck with it, and it's been great. Couldn't do this presentation without Mike's help, so thank you, Mike. Up and coming for the Mill Creek Alliance, several fantastic ways of which you can get involved. It's always a great time to mention the Mill Creek Alliance is a staff of 4.5 paid employees. So that means that most of the change that you see in the world comes from you. So if you want to participate in any of these fine things and more, just go to our website, sign up, register, and we'll see you then. As always, information is available at our website. Please check us out. And now we will start the questioning. Yes. We'll start with questions in-house. If the extra intern help will be available to move around the microphone, that would be great. So if you have a question, raise your hand, and the assisting interns will, or whoever's closest, whoever's closest will hand you the microphone, and we'll get your question addressed to the correct person who can answer it.
I was just curious, are people eating the fish from the Mill Creek? Okay.
Yeah, we don't encourage people to do it, but we're aware that people do. And as Mike said, the official standard from OEPA is that you can have one meal of fish from Mill Creek per week, which is about the same as the other large water streams in the area, Little Miami, Great Miami, etc.
No sushi, cook thoroughly.
Have there been any otters seen in the creek?
No. As a matter of fact, that's something I've always been a little surprised by, because we see beavers and muskrats and mink a lot, but yet to see an otter in Mill Creek. I'm expecting them anytime. If any of you see one, let us know, because that's something I've been keeping an eye out for a while.
Yes. Would you ever implant some darters in upper tributaries to help the biology?
I'll mention that with the help of Hamilton County Soil and Water Conservation District last summer, we did do a pilot project of some electrofishing in various points along the main stem, in Sharon Creek and West Fork Mill Creek. And actually some of those sampling points came up with really good populations of darters. So depending on where you are, there are some good darter populations. Hopefully, as the water quality continues to improve, we're going to see those spread.
Yeah, I noticed Kings Run had a nice quality rating, and since they did, MSD did stream stabilization there a number of years ago, there's now bullfrog, and I've seen a couple of salamanders where for years I didn't see any. But I think things are improving, and I'm just wondering if humans could enhance the diversity, and that's the reason I'm asking about that.
Any other questions here in the room? I know we've also gotten a number from folks during registration, which we can address, and there may also be some from our folks on Zoom. So anybody else here in the room?
So is it a completely different ecosystem on the other side of, say, the Witten Woods Dam? So you have like totally different fish and everything else because they're unconnected? The Witten Woods. Yeah, so everything upstream from Witten Woods, that's just a completely...
Go ahead, sir.
I think with Great Parks, the Sharon Lake is being drained right this year. What impact are you expecting on water quality based on that project?
Zoom? Anybody's manning the Zoom? We can look at those questions. No questions? Okay. I'd like to just address a couple of the questions that people asked upon registration. So one of them was, what impact do CSOs play on water quality? Earlier in the program, I did talk about how raw sewage has a severe effect on the water quality by adding conductivity, by adding extra nutrients, by adding fecal matter. All of these things can elevate some of the levels of the things that we measure into unhealthy ranges and cause problems for sure. Anything else to add, Mike? Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question that we had at registration was, are there observed water quality improvements immediately downstream from mitigation projects? The short answer is yes. The longer answer is, from our data, a lot of the things that are really truly improved by low-head dam mitigation projects are things that we don't measure. So we personally don't have a ton of data on hand to flash around. But the answer is yes. Most immediately, an improvement in dissolved oxygen. All those riffles add a lot more oxygen into the water, and that is super critical for fish. They need at least, they like that 90% oxygen, dissolved oxygen in the water. So if you have oxygenation, you will have more fish, increased fish diversity, increased macroinvertebrates. Other things that adding riffles into a waterway can do, it does help cycle nitrogen. It speeds along the processing of ammonia and nitrite, but those are the two species that we don't check. We check nitrate, kind of the end of the line, and that's where things can build up if they're not properly processed. So that's, that's why we check that, because that's a bigger problem. But riffles are effective at shifting along those first two. Another question we had was nutrients. So the two big nutrients that we monitor, again, are nitrate and phosphate. These are normal parts of the ecosystem. They're not good or bad. They're just there. Human intervention is what causes an explosion in nutrients and causes poor side effects down the line. Next question. How will the recent Supreme Court decision revising the definitions of waters of the United States affect state funding of restoration projects involving wetlands. Bennett, you want to?
Recovering lawyer, thank you. 6 years clean. I still like to keep my finger in that pie, though. All right, so the Sackett decision, for those who may not know it by name, was the recent Supreme Court case where the Supreme Court ruled that, well, let's just say it took away protection from a very large percentage of wetlands, ephemeral and intermittent streams. The ruling basically says that in order to be protected, to be considered a water of the United States, something has to have a continuous direct surface connection. Without getting into the politics, that scientifically that's ridiculous, but that is the ruling. Now, the question is it going to impact funding for the kinds of wetlands restoration projects that we do? Knock on wood, we haven't seen that so far. I mean, the H2 Ohio program, the 319 program that Bennett mentioned a lot, Clean Ohio fund. So far, those funding levels have been maintained. So the bigger impact of Sackett, I think, is going to be that it will allow developers potentially to go into a lot more areas than they used to be able to go into and interrupt ephemeral streams and intermittent streams, which the science says are extremely important to the overall health of our blue line streams and our ecosystem. So there is a real danger from that decision, and it certainly makes our job more difficult. Knock on wood, it hasn't impacted some of the funding sources that we use for stream projects so far. The state of Ohio has overruled most home rule attempts to zone out fracking, so I'm not optimistic about that. Another thing that we could argue about for quite some time, I'm sure. But I think that the state of Ohio can choose to have regulations that are more strict than the federal government's. Whether that will happen, I don't know. But the law says that state government regulations can't just have to be at least as strict as the federal government's regulations. So the state is free to enact stricter standards. So I guess it's up to us to pressure our elected officials and other regulators to do a good job and maybe enact some tougher standards and enforce the ones that are already there.
Another question. Do you collect data on microplastics and forever chemicals in the Mill Creek? And if not, who does? The Mill Creek Alliance does not check for microplastics or forever chemicals. The selection of our parameters is based on, as I said earlier, kind of, targeting, looking for raw sewage release problems. And also, what are we capable of doing? Some tests are very complicated. Some of them can be hazardous. Do we have the lab space and the equipment to be safe? It can be just filthy expensive. So we do what we can with what we have and still turn out a meaningful product data-wise. There was a discussion recently about microplastics. I think there was a professor somewhere that was starting to get interested about microplastics in the Cincinnati area, but I don't know of anyone who's actively doing that testing. Mike, do you? Same thing there on Forever Chemicals. I know for a fact that the Cincinnati Water Works does do some of that analysis. They have very extensive labs. That's my opportunity to plug the Citizens Water Academy. It's open for free to the general public. All you have to do is go to their website, fill out an application to attend, and be granted permission to the program. But it's amazing. They take you to tours of facilities all throughout town. You get FaceTime with a lot of local officials, and you get to see some of these labs and these treatment facilities. And so, yeah, check that out. Greater Cincinnati Water Works, Citizens Water Academy. You'll learn more about that there. Next question. What are the effects of litter, oil, and gas spills and human waste contamination in the Mill Creek? How can we manage? I think yeah. Do the jurisdictions in the Mill Creek watershed have plans for future recreational use of the Mill Creek?
Yeah, that's a resounding yes. Yeah. When I was speaking earlier, I mentioned the trail work we're doing, both in the lower Mill Creek and in the Triangle Trail, the suburban areas. That involves massive cooperation from a large number of our communities and neighborhoods. We are actively, as well as developing the bike trails, we're actively working on developing a water trail. You know, as we have mitigated these low-head dams, we're not only eliminating obstacles for fish, we're eliminating obstacles for paddlers. So our goal is to have the whole main stem of Mill Creek paddleable, at least from the county line on down to the Ohio River before too long. We take people on paddles in our urban stream adventures on a regular basis and do a number of other special trips during the year. So yeah, there's a lot of recreational use both in the works already and planned. And it's not just paddling, it's not just biking, it's birding, it's fishing. There's a lot to be done on Mill Creek, and that's only going to grow in the years to come.
Okay. So this one, I'm gonna look directly at Eric on this one. There are various days when chemical and/or organic odors are very strong near the Western Hills Viaduct. I would be interested in investigating this issue to find out the causes. Answer questions as to where this originates from and affecting water quality in the Mill Creek. I've been noticing it for years now.
So the county has a hotline that's really useful. If you think there's pollution getting into a local water body in the county, I highly recommend using that. But photos are really helpful for us tracking it down. We also run into issues where we go to a storm outfall and we're there and we don't see what that person saw because toilets weren't getting flushed, or a shower wasn't getting used, or laundry wasn't running when we happened to be at that storm pipe looking at it. But that doesn't mean there's not storm infrastructure, or that doesn't mean getting to that storm infrastructure. So we'll do follow-up visits to figure out, to monitor that specific storm pipe. But tracking this stuff down is very, very hard. And the more eyes we have on storm pipes, watching storm pipes, the better. And photos are worth 1,000 words. And if I see a photo where I can see rainbow sheen on foam or a bubble, and I know there's detergents, or you send me a photo with this corn and hydrocarbons, I promise we're going to find the source. So.
If you didn't catch on, the underlying theme of the presentation this year I picked was taking action. Since we had such a hot year for restoration, I thought Eric could share a good message of ways to report problems when you see them. And yeah, so there you go, taking action. Oh. Are there public maps and access points on the Mill Creek for canoeing and kayaking?
Yeah, there sure are. If you go to our website and click on the link for recreation, with the help of the Mill Creek Yacht Club over the years, we have put together quite a few good paddling maps of all the different reaches of Mill Creek. Shows where you can put in, where you can take out, obstacles to be avoided, other dangerous spots, places of interest to make sure you take a look at. Some really old, interesting historical bridges and structures, depending on where you are. So yes, we have a lot of great paddling maps that are available on our website. Or if you stop by the office, we have some that we can hand to you. Yeah. One of our yacht club veterans in the audience is pointing out, quite rightly, that Mill Creek does have a lot of obstacles, and maybe the first time or two that you go out, it would be a great idea to go on one of our public trips with our very experienced guides who can point these things out to you, and then you might be a little bit more prepared to go on your own in the future.
The last questions I have on my list were, what effect do herbicides have on the Mill Creek and the watershed? And also, what effects do flash floods and microplastics have on life in the local waterways? Mike, do you have a comment on those?
Any other questions here in the room? Yeah, we've got a couple. Let her get the microphone to you. 1 second. Sorry.
How are the bivalve mollusks doing in the Mill Creek?
Well, that is a great question, and one that we hope to explore this very coming summer. Freshwater mussels were, essentially wiped out of Mill Creek. Certainly the main stem, probably 100 years ago. The water quality has been improving dramatically. There were some freshwater mussels that were reintroduced to the stream in 2018 in a couple of locations. And since then, we have also discovered, surviving individuals largely, we don't know the extent of populations, but we have discovered living mussels in several other places in the stream, including some fairly urban locations like by the Hopple Street Viaduct and right up by Kemper Road. So we are planning this summer to start taking a look at that. Ken Petrin, who I mentioned earlier, who's with UC, an ecologist, and he and his students are going to help us take a look at a couple locations where they were reintroduced, and then we're going to take a look hopefully with some volunteers at some of these other locations. We, knock on wood, I have every reason to believe that we will find that they are doing okay and starting to spread again. But mussels reproduce fairly slowly, so it's going to take a while, but I think they're doing well.
So I live in St. Paul. Much of anything about that?
Yeah. We would love, in an ideal world, to take all of the channelized sections out. Two things I'll comment on that. One, it is exceedingly expensive to do that. I mean, that concrete was put in there to stay. I mean, it's really, really thick. I've seen estimates of, it would cost $10 million a mile to remove that. So it's very, very expensive, and you also can't do it unless you are ready to immediately go back in and re-sculpt the banks and plant native species. I mean, you have to have things ready to go immediately. So right now, it's not something that an organization our size can contemplate doing. I mean, to do something like that, you really would have to have state and federal government funding. Right now, I'm not aware of any plans to do that. The one exception possibly might be on West Fork Creek, which is a major tributary of Mill Creek, comes in South Cumminsville by Mill Creek Road, the Yellow Bridge area. The Stormwater Management Unit is right now in the midst of having a study done looking at that section of the tributary, which is heavily channelized, and considering, a few years down the road, maybe renaturalizing that. But, that's the only area that I'm aware of that's being considered right now. We would love to do it, but it would take a lot more funding than the Mill Creek Alliance currently has.
Thanks so much for your presentations tonight. I'm still sort of shocked by the E. coli numbers. Maybe I shouldn't be, but I'm wondering if there's any plans to do any further research or investigation about why the stark difference between Mill Creek and the other waterways around here on those. And then sort of a second question is, how does Mill Creek Alliance work with the county, the city, and Ohio EPA when you're sort of at the front lines of collecting this data. So when you get numbers like that, do you report those immediately? Like, can you talk about how you alert officials, especially when they're up in that no contact zone?
Sure.
Thanks.
Well, yeah, I'll note, as Mike said in his presentation, that the numbers this year are sort of odd. I'd like to hope that they were anomalous, but they're much higher. Even as Mike said, usually in a low flow year, you'd expect the opposite. You'd expect it to go down, and the numbers we had this year were quite high, and frankly higher than they've been in a lot of years in the past. So it is troubling. It makes you wonder if there's a large point source somewhere that we're not aware of. And yeah, I would like to investigate that and plan to talk with Eric and Mike and our friends at MSD and see if we can come up with a plan to investigate that, because those are not numbers that we want to see repeated, because they've been headed in the opposite direction for a long time, and we just don't know at this point what caused it to jump like that.
I would also like to point out that remember that the data that we presented here tonight is really just a snapshot. It's one day a month. Maybe it's the perfect storm for bad water quality that we just happened to hit all the worst possible days. If we wanted more thorough information, it would require more sampling and more analysis.
Anyone else here in the room? All right. Well, in that case, folks, I think we have about reached the end of our evening. Once again, I'd like to thank all of you for coming tonight, giving us so much of your time during the middle of work week, allowing us to share our work and our results with you. As Audra said earlier, you guys really are the change. We can't do what we do without your support, without your time, your passion, your financial support. We're only 4.5 people, and we've got a lot of fantastic allies and friends that we work with. So we're relying on you guys to continue to help us and support us as we do this work. Help us find new partnerships. Help us find new means of support. Give us your time and your ideas and your passion. If you think about where Mill Creek was in 1997, and it was declared the most endangered urban stream in North America, to where it is today, when we have people fly fishing on Mill Creek, and we can go paddling on Mill Creek most of the time, and you've got bald eagles and ospreys and freshwater mussels coming back. I mean, it is an amazing story. We have taken collectively, all of us together, we have taken a stream that national experts said was irredeemable. We were wasting our time to do anything about it, and we have proven them wrong. We still have work to do. You heard tonight, we still got issues to deal with. We got work to do. But the progress that we have made together is amazing. And we're going to keep it going in that direction with your help. So thank you so much for all of your support.